The other very big story this month,
All right, tonal shift.
a big tonal shift, and it's kind of interesting to see it all like play out. You would have thought like the death of a wrestler, the death of a colleague might bring some like, I don't know, perspective to a lot of these people, but like nah, there's still a bunch of petty behind the scenes bullshit going on.
Yeah.
So the big thing behind the scenes is a power struggle between the Jarretts and the Carters.
Shocked.
The basic gist is the Carters have caught on that TNA was, in reality, a vehicle to make Jeff into a star. It hasn't worked, and the key is the Carters want Jeff out as champion, AJ Styles in. Jeff doesn't want to do it, and Jerry is trying to rally people against it. Jeff has agreed, after a lot of prodding, to drop the title, but is trying to get a change from Styles. Jarrett's suggestion was Monty Brown.
You son of a bitch. You absolute son of a bitch.
Because that would require a turn by Brown, because Brown's a heel and they're aligned in stories. That would be premature, although at one point the plan at Lockdown was already to have Brown turn because there was super heat on Rhodes for turning Brown heel in the first place. It would also require a new contract signing by Brown that may not happen, and a chase build-up which buys Jarrett a ton of time. Which that's the key part here. He doesn't want to drop the belt to Monty. But he knows if they switch it from Styles to Monty, you have to go through this turn, you have to go through the build, and you have to go through the title change. So that's probably like 3 months minimum that buys time Jarrett as champion.
And also he gets to beat AJ Styles again.
He finally gets his win back against AJ because AJ's beaten him for the title the 2 other times.
Yeah.
So you might be thinking, why is Jarrett so desperately clinging to the title?
You know what? I'm not thinking that, actually. I have a pretty good interpretation from every other second of this company's history.
But like, on a level above, you might think, it can't just be ego, right? He can't just be that desperate to hold on to the belt. One of the other big reasons he does want to keep the title is because in this moment, him and Jerry are seeking outside funding to buy out the Carters. They're trying to find somebody to back them, to buy out the Carters' stake in the company and take the company back themselves. And they see the title as like a point of leverage in that conversation, where if Jeff is champion, no matter what happens, like Jeff will at least be a focus part of the show. Whereas if he's not champion and this buyout either goes bad or goes the way they want, even at least like they'll be able to basically punish him and easily slide him down the card because he won't be champion, so they'll just be able to like solve that problem pretty easily.
The funniest thing about that is there's like a glaring solution to all that, which is just strip him and make a TNA champion.
But they don't want to do. You don't want to have the guy hold the belt for 11 months and then not drop it.
Yeah, you know, you want to actually have him put someone over at the end of a reign of terror.
So that is like the subtext to why Jarrett is so vehemently against dropping the title right now, because he wants to keep the title as leverage in those negotiations as he potentially seeks an outside buyer to buy out the Carters.
Yeah.
The office is divided, as most of the people were hired by Jeff, but many are insistent the title change happens now, and Styles is the wrestler that the people buying the product see as the biggest star, so he should be the one who gets it. The hiring of Frank Dickerson seems to have sped up a process. You cannot deal with Frank Dickerson's name.
I know what you're talking about. I'm very much...
That was inevitable. We were just talking in the intro about how you had reached a stage of good emotional maturity, and you're still laughing at Frank Dickerson's name.
Dickerson.
His hiring sped up a process that was inevitable of the Carters now wanting to get the big decision-making power away from the Jarretts. The problem from the outside is the Jarretts are wrestling people, both good and bad, and it also winds up that those in power want the spotlight kept on them and use their power for it, which is the consistent issue in the history of professional wrestling, that when wrestlers have power, wrestlers generally use that power to promote themselves positively.
And you know what the problem is too? Even if they get their way and they do have the Jarretts out, but they still need like a wrestling person to run the wrestling. Like their backup guy Dusty is currently in the midst of the entire roster not being into what Dusty's been doing.
Though that's somewhat a mark against the Jarretts as well, because Dusty was their guy, remember, especially Jerry's. So when they took power away from Jeff and gave it to Dusty not working out is kind of a mark against the Jarretts, because like Jeff didn't work out. They were like, all right, Jerry comes in. What about this Dusty guy? He's our next solution. He'll be the guy that actually works out. And then when Dusty didn't work out, the Carters are like, so the Jarretts didn't do a good job themselves. the guy they volunteered to replace Jeff also didn't do a good job. So what the fuck do these Jarrett guys know about wrestling?
Which means we find our own wrestling guy.
And that is the thing. It's like, listen, you can be a little gatekeepy, and like wrestling is an honest to goodness, extremely unique industry. That does, you can't come into wrestling from the outside and understand it from day one. You'll fall flat in your face because you do need like to be steeped in it, at least to some extent, so that you can understand how wrestlers work and you can understand how wrestling fans work. I really don't think it's the kind of thing you can be dropped into and then pick up instantly. You need some knowledge of it. But also, there are hundreds of people who have that knowledge.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, wrestling has been around a long time. There have been a lot of people who have been behind wrestling that you can get for this. This isn't a role that is impossible to replace.
And even within the company, like, you tried Jarrett and Dutch, you tried Russo, you tried Dusty. It's like, there's loads of other people with tons of experience in this company. Give them a go. And that's ultimately what happens. But
the idea of, like, let's get the Jarretts out. Oh, the guy that we had to replace the Jarretts, we also have to get out. We have to find a new one.
It is worth noting, it's not just the characters that turn on Dusty, but Dusty begins increasingly ramping up the fact that Jeff has to drop the title, and then the Jarretts turn on Dusty too.
Yeah. It's just a complete civil war breaking out.
While Dusty has heat from everyone on every side, it seems, there is also the feeling of late Jerry has been trying to make sure Dusty doesn't succeed, like coming up with the lockdown concept that couldn't help but burn out Stips. And there's like more conspiracy theories that the Jarretts are actively trying to sabotage the company to reduce its value so they get it on the cheap when they try to buy it.
That seems very Jarrett.
So this does come to a head, even if you didn't have the little power struggle between the Carters and the Jarretts, which, push comes to shove, Carters are majority shareholders, they win that power struggle. Like,
yeah.
The only reason they won't is if the Jarretts kind of, like, politically maneuver their way in there, so that, like, ousting the Jarretts would be a politically unpopular move that might, like, sabotage the whole company. But if it's, like, us or them, Jarretts, you're out of here.
Yeah, and also it's like, it's not like the Jarretts have been particularly liked the whole time either.
No.